Hello, this is Romanosky from Calgary, Canada, shooting from the Lugnuts facility. And what we have behind us here is a nice example of a little French car, 2CV or 2 chevaux. This one is a 1982, although they hardly changed the design from the original concept cars in the late 30s all the way up to, I think, the early 90s when they stopped making them. So it's a ruthlessly simple, yet very clever design that was part of the desire of the French government in the 30s to mobilize a lot of rural France, enabling them to take their goods from the farms to market. So it famously, part of the design brief was to carry a basket of eggs over a rough field without breaking them. It was designed as a convertible in case you had a large item that you needed to, even an animal, that you needed to bring to market. And they made millions of them. They were ubiquitous in France and many parts of the world, although I don't think they were sold in Canada or North America, and if they were, it was for only a very short period. So they're a bit of a rarity in North America. This one comes from France. It was imported into Montreal around 2010, and then sold to a person in Victoria, where it lived for a few years, and then found by a Calgary collector, and moved to Calgary in, I think, 2017. So we've actually a collection of enthusiastic owners and well documented with the original bill of sale, the original books, and emails and so forth, correspondence between various owners and so forth. It wound up in a collection with a lot of Italian exotica in an aircraft hangar, sharing space with Countach's and Ferrari 512 Boxers, etc. And the Calgary guy bought it here because his wife was French. And so it was kind of a novelty purchase. He saw the car at a Cars and Coffee in Victoria and wound up bringing it to Calgary. So then we bought it from him. We did a little bit of work to it, and now we're reselling it. So we'll do a walk-around video. I'll break it up into sections. We'll do the interior or the exterior and the interior. We'll go through the engine compartment. We'll take a look underneath the car. We'll go through all the records, and then we'll conclude it with a driving video and a stop for a cup of coffee, which we just did. So the first section of the video will just be the exterior walk-around. Okay, so in general, the car presents well. It's not a show car. It's not a concours car. It's a collection of refurbished parts, repainted body panels, repaired floors, looks to be the original interior, looks to be the original soft top, the original trim. So it's had some sympathetic, mostly cosmetic refurbishment over the years, mostly all done in France. It hasn't really changed too much since it got to Canada in 2010. It did receive a lot of servicing from a Citroen expert in Vancouver, including doing the pushrod seals on one side of the engine. It drives well, runs well, starts well. We took the plugs out of it and they were excellent. It develops all of the 29 horsepower it's supposed to. And it keeps up with traffic fine. It only has 29 horsepower, but it only weighs 1,300 pounds and has skinny tires. So it's happily cruising up to 100 kilometers an hour. We've just driven it around the city and put it back in the showroom. If you want to take a closer look at it, we can see, a lot of original parts on the car that are showing. It's got 51,000 kilometers. So it looks to be the original lights. You can see the silvering is, starting to corrode a little bit inside. We've got the grille surround, which is alloy, and we can see that, you know, it's got a few dents in it, a little bit of corrosion. Not sure what that is. I think it's alloy. You know, there's touched up stone chips throughout. The repaint that was done in France was done to, a decent driver's standard, but not any better than that. So, you know, there are some imperfections in the paint, but nothing that stands out, and nothing you'd see from 6 feet away. Okay, so if you get really close and you look at it, you know, you can see swirl marks and a couple fish eyes. If you look carefully here, you can see the odd little tiny bit of bubbling that, you know, needs some attention at some point. But there's no, you know, if we look around the doors and so on, the fenders, there's no bubbling in the doors, there's no corrosion that's evident on any of the fenders and so on. Underneath looks good. We did replace the floor on the driver's side, and we can show you that in more detail. So this piece did have a hole in it, and we did replace that body panel. We ground out all the rust that was present. We used liberal amounts of sealant and put it back together. So I won't promise that, you know, there's not any soft corner anywhere in this car, but for all intent and purposes, it's now a rust-free body shop. The repairs were just okay. You know, they're serviceable. It's sealed. We've you know, repainted the floor, etc. But it's not a show car. That being said, it doesn't detract at all from the way it presents and the fun that you'll have with it. We have the soft top, and if we unroll it, it's original. It's in decent shape. There on the driver's side, the vinyl is starting to split a little bit. We can see that here. And so there's a little bit along the sides here and where it's bent, where it's dried up and it's split. But again, when it's fastened down, you know, it's not really noticeable, and it's leak-free. And a new top is 200 euros or something like that. So it's not a big deal. It's just a piece of vinyl. Okay, so what else can we show you about the glass is all good. All the parts to the car look original to the car. I mean, maybe excepting the wiper blades, but the mirrors and the wiper arms and the window and the various different clips and fasteners and door handles and so forth all look original to the car to me. The tires are recent in the last few years, and they don't have any mileage on them at all. So, you know, there's no real, I would say, flaws noticeable on the exterior, but there's no part of the exterior that looks like it's a brand new car either. So, you know, what this is, you know, a 40-year-old car with 50,000 kilometers. It hasn't been driven that much, that still drives really well, that's been serviced by a marque expert recently, that's had new paint and work to the floor pans. So the metal on these cars is paper thin, and so it doesn't take much at all to corrode. But that's all been fixed to a decent workmanlike standard, serviceable standard, and with the use that the car is likely to have, you know, good for the next 40 years. We'll just go around the passenger side. And again, we see, you know, we see some fish eyes in the paint on this fender. You can get a close look at that. You know, imperfections in the paint. We see, you know, a filled-in rock chip over there. We see, you know, the beginnings of some bubbling starting on the bulkhead. The original mirrors, you know, you can see the stamp. Everybody likes to see the stamp on the mirrors. And no door dings or other dents. There's a light scratch in the rear fender, or a couple of them. So don't expect perfection, but it's not too bad either. And like I said, you need to look at it really closely to see. In the trunk area, we can go around. Put that up, and we have a bunch of material. I'm not sure why it's all here. Cars of the 40s. A couple classic car magazines that have a DS in them, but not a Citroen, not a 2CV, so I'm not sure why that's there, but maybe there's an article in there somewhere. We have a 2CV manual, so we have the shop manual in English. We have well, more shop manuals in English. Touch-up paints, spare light bulbs, an oil filter, some LHM brake fluid, because it doesn't use .3 or 4 brake fluid, it uses the LHM. We have a replacement grill. We have some oil, although we put 2050 in it. It doesn't have 2030 in it anymore. And some replacement fuses and so forth. So all that goes with the car. And the trunk line, or the wooden trunk platform, is in nice shape. And there's no material rust in the trunk well. You can see that in the photographs. So all is well there. This like that, and like that. And we can look under the hood. The release, there's no release for it in the cabin. That would be a luxury, which the Citroen doesn't have. So the hood release is here. And the bonnet rod, where does it go again? Oh yeah, here. Okay, so it just looks like an engine bay. Well, that hose could be attached. So I don't see, nothing's really leaking. It did just get a couple $1,000s worth of engine work by this expert in Vancouver. You know, it's not tarted up. We didn't go and spray paint things to make it look better. It's just an honest engine bay, and from a 50,000 kilometer car, it's entirely consistent with the mileage on the odometer, leading me to believe that all these components are original to the car, although I don't know that for sure. The Citroen VIN is this VF7 AZK A008 4K A8 5589 number. When the car was imported, or at least into BC, but not Quebec. In Quebec, it was registered to that VIN. Somehow or other, when it got to BC, they told the guy that the computer wouldn't accept that VIN for whatever reason, probably because the clerk didn't know the workaround to it, because it was a French car. But anyway, for whatever reason, they decided that it needed a BC VIN, not the Citroen VIN, and so the VIN was reassigned, and it was registered in BC under a new VIN and riveted to the door panel. And then when it went to Alberta, it carried this VIN as well. So the car is currently registered to this VIN, not the original Citroen VIN, for no good reason at all. It's not like the car was a salvage car, or there was a problem with the original VIN or anything like that. Just that when they went, and this is in the documentation, just when they went to register it, the clerk just said, "Oh, our computer doesn't take that, you need a new VIN." And the guy was like, "All right, give me a new VIN." Okay, so that explained. Other than that, the car runs really well. Later in the video, we do a cold start and we do a driving video and so on. You can see it run. And everything functions properly. All the switches inside, signal lights, headlights, all of that works. To my knowledge, everything works in the car. Nothing doesn't work in the car. Not that there's that many things to not work in a 2CV. But what there is, works. Okay. And then let's have a look inside. And this is the Charleston. So there was normal 2CVs. There were special editions of 2CVs. Charleston was one. I think the base one was called a Club, and the Charleston gave you the two-tone bodywork and the quilted interior, just like a Bentley Mulliner. All the dash, we can maybe focus on the mileage and get that. So the dash, switchgear and so on looks all original to me. Like I said, everything works, and it's all in decent shape. So the door cards, dash, instruments, knobs and so forth all look good. We did replace the foam on the driver's seat because it was just getting a little bit worn. And other than that, we just replaced the floor, did the driver's seat, gave the car an oil change, and that's really all we did to the car. But it's clean and tidy on the inside. There's no rips or tears in the upholstery. There's a couple of, if we want to focus on this inner fabric, I'm not sure what was going on with that, and I did buy the replacement felt for that. I just haven't installed it, and that can go with the car. And I also bought maybe get a shot of the bulkhead. That material was just coming apart, and so I took it out. So I bought replacement padding or insulation for the front bulkhead. I'll show you where that is right now. Where did I put it? So these pieces come with the car, and this is the felt that lines the felt pieces that line around the windows. That's just a bit of dirt when I test fit it. So it does fit correctly. You have to take a few pieces off to put this on properly, and I just kind of ran out of time. And then these are pieces that attach on the bulkhead and just give you some sound and heat insulation. So these come with the car, but I haven't installed them. And like I said, I just ran out of time on that. Okay, so now let's do a cold start and driving video. This vehicle was inside for the last few days, and we just pulled it out. It's cold, and so we'll start the engine, and Aidan will look at what comes out of the tailpipe, and then we'll go look at take the bonnet up and listen to the engine run. I keep forgetting there's no interior release for a 2CV. That would be too complicated to manufacture, so it's got a release right under the front bumper, and we've got the prop rod, which lives here. The car needs a little bit of choke to start up, so Aidan will be behind us. We'll put the parking brake on and choke out a bit. Okay, so it starts up right away, And I'll just sort of let it settle here until I can turn the choke off. Not the most refined car I've ever driven, but lots of fun. Okay, so let's let this settle. Okay, and let's go have a look at it. So we just changed the oil and changed the spark plugs, and there's no unusual noises from the engine or clunking or knocking or ancillary noises. Not that there's many ancillaries to make noise. Oops. Well, that's the choke there. So the throttle would be, oh, it's down here, I guess. Yeah, so it's eager and willing and torquey for all 600 cc's can do. But as we'll see on the drive, the weight is so low, and the rolling resistance from the tires and the low weight is so minimal that it actually keeps up the traffic not too bad, all the way up to highway speeds. So we'll put this away. And you can come in and look at it a bit closer. It doesn't leak. You know, the engine bay looks like an engine bay. We didn't really go in and try to beautify it. This is how we found it, and it's around a 50,000 kilometer car, and it looks I can't tell exactly, but it looks to me like it's the original engine and gearbox, and it looks to me like it's never really been apart. So. To the best of my ability or knowledge, it is the original powertrain in the car that really it hasn't been taken apart. So what we see with cars like that is that they actually drive really nice. When the cars are all taken apart and they look nice and shiny underneath, but they have new components and mismatched components and aftermarket components and original components and some stuff that's old and some stuff is new. Often we find that they're not as smooth. They don't drive as nice. The control weights and distances the pedals travel and so forth just don't seem to be right. And when you get an original car, everything's bedded in from new, and it all works fairly harmoniously. Okay, so let's take this little French car out for a drive. It has been warmed up. Shouldn't need any choke. Okay, so the gearbox takes a little bit of familiarity, but it becomes second nature pretty quickly. So in this car, reverse is over to the left and forward, and there's no chattering from the clutch or squeaking from the brakes. And then first is toward you. Of course, the weights on the gearbox are pretty low. So we are in an industrial area filled with trucks and lots of potholes, which actually the 2CV copes with pretty well. But we'll do a search just for some habitat that's closer to what the 2CV is used to and is good at, which isn't fighting it out with these semi trucks. Okay. Okay, so this car has the larger 600cc engine, which is I think 29 horsepower, which of course doesn't sound like too much, but the car only weighs about 1,300 pounds, and it has really skinny tires, and the engine is designed to run flat out. It's actually a fairly advanced design. So we're on a major corridor, and while I'm not in the fast lane, I've got 80 kilometers an hour uphill, and the car, and that happens to be the speed limit, and the car is keeping up with traffic. It's a windy day, but the car doesn't seem to be blown around by the wind. The steering is actually surprisingly heavy for such a small machine, but it makes driving on the freeways actually pretty stable. The suspension, of course, is very soft, but it doesn't feel nervous. I'm now 90 kilometers an hour in the wind with a bunch of trucks around me. So the car doesn't feel nervous at all. It's very stable. Stable over the bumps, stable over braking. The car's okay. I mean, obviously it's not in its forte, but it'll still do it. And now we're cruising at 90, 95 kilometers an hour, and we're happily keeping up with traffic. And the engine sounds happy enough, like it'll do this forever, and it was designed to. So if you need to get on the highway and go somewhere, you can. And this is like, I would say peppier than some of the other really small cars or slow cars out there, be it 500s and so on, or early Beetles. It doesn't feel that slow. All right, so we've exited the freeway and we're going to a much more scenic and civilized road. And the car, of course, is a little bit happier, with some gentle rolling hills and curves rather than a pothole-strewn motorway. But the sun is shining, and you've got this beautiful, expansive open top, designed originally so that the French farmers could carry animals or other oversized items, and they could go through the roof. It wasn't like, nothing about this car was designed to be stylish or iconic. It just kind of wound up that way. It was designed purely for its purpose of mobilizing the French countryside and providing transport to market for the farmers' goods. Every piece on this was designed for low-cost manufacture, ease of service, and functionality. And yet somehow it just became this style icon, as did, funnily enough, other nations' people's car, like the Volkswagen Beetle, and that was designed to carry 4 people on the Autobahn at 100 kilometers an hour, using 7 liters per 100 kilometers of fuel. The original Mini, the early Land Rovers, which also had were designed to mobilize the English farmers and ranchers to get their goods to market too. So in the 50s and earlier, I suppose, there was a big push to give everybody their first car. And it needed to be inexpensive, not just to run, but also to manufacture. So there was all kinds of ingenious solutions to keep the upfront manufacturing costs down, using low-cost available materials, simple presses, simple manufacturing techniques, etc. What's really interesting is that these cars, the first Land Rover, the Beetle, the 2CV, the Fiat 500, the Austin Mini, they all became style icons yet none of them were actually styled. It was purely form follows function. And yet somehow they not only became these, you know, they're very popular, selling millions of examples, but they had incredible longevity. So now, you know, there's a new Beetle and a new Fiat 500 and a new Mini, etc. I don't think there's a new 2CV though. But they just and their style, you know, became a symbol for the nation, you know, that created them. And now, you know, of course, the cars are more or less all homogeneous. You know, you could even, like, there's really no effective difference between a Kia, a Mercedes, a Toyota, and like a Ford compact SUV. If you put them all in the parking lot, you can't even tell the difference. Okay, so they're all different countries, vastly different cultures, but when it comes to manufacturing cars cheaply, they all wind up just looking the same and satisfying, you know, safety regulations and emission regulations worldwide has a lot to do with that too. Anyway, so that's really interesting to me, how the cars symbolized the national identity for their style, and yet the reasons for their existence were purely practical and social. So that's why I think driving a car like this is super interesting. One, it's a cute little French car. You know, it's practical, it's cheap to run, etc. It's affordable to buy. But if you dig deeper than that into the history of it, the social history that surrounded it, you know, there's an interesting intellectual, you know, study of it. And Citroen particularly, because André Citroen was a really, you know, interesting figure. He was extremely innovative, not just in terms of the products that he created, but also, you know, the marketing as well. He of course lit up the Eiffel Tower for 20 years with a big Citroen letters. You know, he I think did skywriting for the first instance, using skywriting to advertise a product. He had a really incredible marketing campaign, sending with explorations using Citroen vehicles. I think mostly what you call a half track, which is a car in front and then tracks for the rear wheels. Sending expeditions, you know, all over the world for publicity in the 30s. One even went through near Calgary, and one of those is in a museum in Alberta in Wetaskiwin, the Reynolds Museum. And I think they tried to get to the North Pole and didn't make it in that instance, because I think everything just froze. But those cars were driven in the most incredible places, and at some points the terrain was so difficult that the cars had to be disassembled and carried part by part to, you know, cross passes and so forth. But anyway, Citroen, he was a gambler and a womanizer, and he wound up going bankrupt and selling the car to the company to the Michelin brothers. But it's a really fascinating story of innovation with the traction avant, the first front-wheel drive car, with this 2CV, of course the famous DS and later Citroen SM cars. Really great story, and just really cool reading, really cool products. And this is where you want a 2CV, is you want to take it in the inner city somewhere and park it in front of a restaurant, and you may see with this video the incredible amount of positive attention that the car gets. Like, literally leaving my building, I get like 2 waves, a bunch of smiles, and a thumbs up, you know, before we've even rounded the first corner. So one thing that I think is kind of amusing, you know, driving kind of collector cars around or exotic cars around, where there's lots of people, is the reactions that they just get from people. And that's part of the fun of owning a classic car. Don't buy a Citroen 2CV if you don't want to talk to anybody or you're not that friendly. Because people just come out of the woodwork and want to talk to the car, and it really just brings smiles to kind of everybody who sees it. If you drive, at least here, down this road, and you're in a Ferrari and Lamborghini or whatever, some flashy exotic car, people will really not want to make eye contact with you for whatever reason. They don't want to be caught looking at you, I guess, so they look away. And you just, at least I kind of just feel like I don't really feel that comfortable driving a car like that and getting attention, which I wouldn't describe as overwhelmingly positive. Lots of people appreciate those cars, but you just kind of feel a bit self-conscious. If you drive like an older car, like I had a 50s Bentley, well, everybody's just happy to see you. They're happy the car's out. They're happy that somebody's maintaining this old piece of history. People smile at you. But the two cars of everything I've ever driven, which is a lot, that get the most attention, the most positive attention, there's two cars that really stand out. One of them is a Jaguar E-Type, in which it just, brings out beaming smiles from the most attractive women. It's quite a remarkable, and despite the colossal amount of trouble they are to keep on the road, just for those moments that they're worth it. And the Citroen 2CV, because it's just such a cute little car that everybody wants to wave and smile at you and whatever. So you can putt around in this thing in downtown, and literally you make people happy because they see it, and that's just a good feeling. For a very modest outlay, like you think about the guy who spent 300 grand on his Lamborghini trying to look cool, and you pull up in your whatever $25,000 Citroen, and all the girls look at you and nod at him, and you just feel quite it's really quite amusing. He's kind of figuring, wait, I have 600 horsepower. And it's like, okay, well, I have 29 horsepower, but that's not, your extra 570 horsepower is not doing you any good, pal. And additionally, the car is pretty practical. So first of all, it gets good fuel economy, like 5 liters per 100 kilometers or something like that. It does have 4 doors. You can put stuff in the back. Literally, it was designed as a utility car. So, if you need to go pick up a TV set or something, you can throw it in the back, or extra long baguettes or whatever. I take my kids for rides in this car, and Aiden's in the back of the car now. So you can use it for things, especially in the inner city, or if you have if you have a place in the country, it's just happy pottering around and completely unfussy. So back to this car in particular, it's unfussy. It brakes well and shifts well. It steers and stops straight. The engine doesn't make any noises. It was serviced by a Citroen guru in Vancouver, while it was in BC, and he did some engine work. There's somebody honking at us. He did some engine work for some push rod seals, and he declared the car an excellent driving car. So it's had good. It's been looked after for the time that it's been in Canada, and it runs and works perfectly well. And it's just a lot of fun to putt around it. We'll go around the corner. There we go. All right, let's grab a coffee. Okay, so let's just have a look at this maintenance binder and try to decipher it. Well, this guy Dennis looks like he had the car in Victoria and has, you know, obviously a Citroen fan with, I don't know, plaques and dishes and lots of automobilia to do with Citroen. And we see, you know, the same plastic container in the back of the car. So this is the Calgary collector purchased it from this guy. We have the original books, pretty rare for a 2CV, all in French, of course. And I did remember looking up the warranty book and seeing the name and address of the original owner somewhere, where they lived in France, and some maintenance stamps in the books, but those are generally not, let's try to find it here. Yeah, so originally we have it sold in 1982 to somebody in La Fleury on Beethoven Street. And we have the vehicle sold by Société Commerciale Citroën. I'm butchering the French, so please be easy on me. Montigny? Don't know. Anyway, sold in France. And we have all the books and the manuals in France. Thankfully, we have Google Translate, so we can use our phones and figure out what it all says. Okay, so that's the owner's manual. A little tag here. What does this say? Don't know, but it happened at 39,000 kilometers. I guess these little tickets help to verify the correct mileage on the car, which is now 51,000 kilometers. Okay, it tells you how to shift. It looks like we have a new bill of sale to Chartier Jeanette on Beethoven Street in Fontenay-le-Fleury in France. And we have this car selling for, looks like 28,300 French francs in May. We have what looks to be, this is from Citroen, data sheet on the car. AZ series, KA. Produces 88.5 decibels, which is quite noisy. So anyway, and it does, well, you can get your Google Translator out and figure it out what it all says. Again, this is the lady who bought it, 176 francs, and that is in, what date is that? Doesn't say the date. Okay. Looks like we have some sort of a pollution test from Bosch. It records CO2, and that's in, looks like 1997. Again, we're still in France in 97, and this is day and month. Not sure the year, what that is. Almost looks like a ticket of some sort. I'm not sure why you'd keep that. Hotel de Police. Oh dear. Not sure what that is. Looks like a parking ticket to me. We have some appraisals of the car. 36,000 kilometers, and this is now in Quebec. This in Laval, and September of 2010. So it's made its way to Quebec with 37,000 kilometers on it. And it's in this configuration, these colors, in this condition, since looks like 2010. Okay, and we have condition reports on it, appraisals. We have some photographs, which presumably go along with the appraisal, and we can see the car looking as it does now. When in Quebec, it looks like it got some service, and this looks like the company, 2CV MDL, and we're now in 2011, and we've got bills for $1,000, bills for $700. Looks like it got tires in 2011. It has tires since then, and you know, I see the word carburetor. I see other ignition-related items here. LHM fluid, something to do with the temperature control, and that's $700. Again, we're now in 2012, and we've got 2050 motor oil, oil service. Kilometers aren't listed. And new battery, voltage regulator, some new components, that's $200. And then in May 2013, I believe this gets sold out of Quebec, and it goes to Victoria. And what is that? There's an evaluation, another appraisal, it looks like. And then we have some correspondence from the Quebec owner to the Victoria owner, transportation. We have, what else do we have here? Tried to get plates yesterday, but ICBC, this is the BC titling office, insisted on verifying 2 VIN numbers, but we could only find one. And we had to apply for a pseudo VIN for $25 from ICBC to satisfy their computer requirements. Did I tell you I dislike bureaucracy, but not much one can do about it. So in BC, this is how it gets the BC VIN. It says, with the current, there's a question about the hole in the floorboards, which we addressed, but they're addressing here in 2013. There should be no more rust, neither expansion of it. Therefore, the option to leave it as is a viable one. The option to replace this part is also viable. Should I have not been relocated, I would have certainly changed the part. Okay, so we did change that, but they were talking about that in 2013. The new owner is happy with the car. The owner in Quebec relocated to Munich, which is why they sold it. There's a few other kind of questions on the car. It lands in BC in 2013. Trying to get the mileage for you. In June 27th, 2013. You'd think it would have the mileage, but it doesn't. Okay, so now it lives in BC, and we pick it up at 44,000 kilometers. So it came into Quebec at 2010 with 36. 12,000 kilometers was put on in Quebec. It goes to Victoria with 44,000 kilometers in 2013. It has 51,000 kilometers on it now, so it's been driven 5,000 kilometers in the last 10 years. Gets an oil service, master cylinder, fan belt. It gets valve cover gaskets, LHM fluid. It gets, now we're going to, what's the year? It's got to be here somewhere. Now we're in 2016. It's got 49,000 kilometers on it. So what was that? 3,000 kilometers later. It gets oil change, valve cover gaskets for $400. Rear calipers, brake disc. It gets overhaul the front calipers, 49,500 kilometers. So front calipers are recently done. Shock absorbers, front, rear. That's done in 2017. That doesn't have the kilometers. Now we're at still 49,500 kilometers in, what's the date? Can't see the date. Oh, another 2017. It gets driven very sparsely. No brake or signal lights, so it gets that sorted. Brake light switch, gets that done. It gets the brake installed. Then we go to this guy, Alistair Black, who I understand to be a Citroen expert. And it is brought in for leaking pushrod seals. And so there was a cylinder head leak. And so remove and replace the left cylinder head. New valve stem seals, reassemble, test, and it's perfect. Replace the alternator, clean the spark plugs, replace center exhaust muffler, grease the knife edge suspension, lube is necessary. Good running 2CV, pleasant to drive. It's a $1,800 bill with all the parts. Then looks like it was for sale after that. Recent mechanical work, brake master cylinder, valve cover gaskets, overhauled front calipers. Work done by Lionel Hondier, Citroen guru in Vancouver. Replaced the pushrod seals, removed and replaced left cylinder, a new alternator belt installed. Replaced center exhaust muffler. His comment, good running 2CV, pleasant to drive. So that's Dennis sells the car. And now it winds up in Calgary in 2013. And we have the Carfax, title search, out of province inspection, 50,859. So it's been in Calgary since, oh no, this is 2017 now, and driven a few hundred kilometers, and that's it. Okay, so it gets new tires. It gets drive shaft seal at transmission replaced, remove passenger side and driver's side axles, replace the torn boot. So it gets that in Calgary for $1,400. Repaired the track and the seat base in Calgary. It gets a full detailing. New tires from Coker, and they're the ones that are on the car now. And that brings us to the current day. So sorry to make that so long and drawn out, but that gives you the original bill of sale, the original books. We can see that it was refurbished in France and repainted, sent to Quebec in 2010, sold into Victoria in 2013, sold to Calgary in 2017. Not really driven too much. You know, it came to Canada with 36,000 kilometers. It is 51. And it's been driven 5,000 kilometers in the last 10 years, but it's had the benefit of a bunch of recent service and the engine work done by a marque expert. So that's the history we have of this 1982 Citroen 2CV Charleston, all well documented and what you want to see in a nice binder. Okay, so in summary, I think I could say what we have here is an original car, a very well documented car, a great driver, starts, stops, shifts well, doesn't leak, doesn't smoke. The engine runs well with no noises. It's had the benefit of quite a bit of service in the last 10 years. The last bit done by a Citroen guru, so I've heard, in Vancouver. We have a car that has given us no trouble when we're here. It always starts up even after sitting all winter, and is nice to drive, and is happy going at motorway speeds at 100 kilometers an hour, indicating that the engine is in good health. I took the spark plugs out of the engine, and they looked excellent. They were perfect. So we have a good driving Citroen 2CV. We have the body shell on the car is in decent shape. It's original. If you look carefully, at the leading edge of the cowl, we can see tiny little bits of evidence of corrosion. The car had work to the floor pans, and the floor pan on the driver's side was rusted through. That was fixed to a decent standard. There's no any rust that was in the car has been, at least that we could see, was cut out, and the undercarriage has been sealed. So, we've got a car that you're really not going to have to do anything to for, the foreseeable future. It presents well. The interior looks good. You have to get up close to notice small flaws in the paint, little dents in the grille, and cosmetic imperfections. But they would be commensurate with a car with 50,000 kilometers that's 40 years old. So in that sense, honest. It's not a show car. It's not a restored car. It's a car that got a light cosmetic refurbishment in France, probably around 2010, with some repairs done to the floor area. And it should be good for a lot of happy miles. These cars aren't expensive, yet they get a lot of positive attention, and they're significant cars in automotive history, especially in France. And it's a good opportunity for somebody to be the next custodian of this 2CV, give it some love, and have some fun with it. So with that, thank you for viewing. Please like and subscribe. Lromanosky, shooting from Lugnuts in Calgary, Canada. This is a no reserve auction, so it will sell to somebody.